I want to ask you about the Affordable Care Act in just a moment. But first, you just returned from the White House, where President Biden just signed the Juneteenth federal holiday into law, commemorating the abolition of slavery. This holiday is more than 150 years in the making. So what was it like being there for this historic moment?
Well, thank you very much for having me. You know, I said on the floor on yesterday when we were debating this bill, this holiday should give us an opportunity every year to reflect on how bad it is to fail to communicate. Juneteenth took place in 1865. Slavery was outlawed by the Emancipation Proclamation, January 1, 1863. For 2.5 years, nobody communicated to these people that they have been freed. That to tell us something by keeping the lines of communication open. And so I have been using this experience to say to my colleagues, it's time for us to learn to communicate. If we communicate with each other, we could do better on behalf of the American people.
All right, folks, we got to talk about it. It is Juneteenth. Some of you have the day off. The federal government is celebrating it. Some state governments are celebrating it, but some aren't. The state of Alabama has it, but it's not an official holiday. It's just a proclamation. Some states are doing that. But you are supposed to know about this, and you're supposed to pretend that we've been celebrating Juneteenth since the beginning of time, even though I've been a talk show host for almost 20 years. And it's only come up over the last 3 years. That's just the truth of the matter. I mean, we can kind of talk about however you want to see it if you want, but we try to be honest here on this program. So let's talk a little bit about Juneteenth. And because I'm not supposed to center myself on these conversations, I went out and found us some people who believe they should center themselves on this conversation. So let's listen to what they have to say. Like The Root. This is MSNBC's Black-run website. And they had the Caucasian's Guide to Celebrating Juneteenth. And as a Caucasian person myself, I was like, thank God it's here so I can finally figure out what to do. And luckily for me and for you now, we can go through this and figure out exactly what we're supposed to be doing. Apparently, we're supposed to stop. Okay? As a Caucasian, you are supposed to stop and you are supposed to hold up white people because that is not your space. Okay, so they ran down some rules for us. They explained what Juneteenth is. Galveston, Texas, some of the people who were still enslaved after the Emancipation Proclamation and they were freed were finally told. It took too long. It's a terrible thing. We all agree on that. But let's start with what Juneteenth is not, according to The Root. Juneteenth is not the Black 4th of July. I never would have thought that it was. Juneteenth is not reparations. Well, of course not. It's not. Juneteenth is not a racism vaccine. I don't know what that is, but if they did come up with it, they would demand that you took it. Just know that. And Juneteenth is not the cookout. Now, this is a weird one for me because some of these things, I hear them and I'm like, who thought this stuff? Okay, who thought it was the cookout? And they go through and they lay all this out and they use what they believe, I'm sure, is a clever phrase here. I'll highlight it on the screen because I'm surely not going to say it any day, especially Juneteenth. The last edition of the Regional Executive Administrative and Legislative Newsletter for the International Council of Cookout Arts and Sciences. Yeah, so this is you're not supposed to invite black people, or you're not supposed to be invited to a cookout. Cookouts are only invite only. I think that's every day. But understand this, do not show up at a cookout that you are not invited to on this day. This is an important thing that you're supposed to know. So there's a lot of the things you're supposed to know. And then, of course, they move past this and we get the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not have any holidays before Juneteenth. Thou shalt not bear false witness against the neighbors means don't call the cops. Don't do that. Don't white-splain, which is talk about Juneteenth in an authoritative way. I'm doing the opposite. I'm saying someone explain to me, which you'll learn later, that is also bad. Okay? Now, the same thing goes with thou shalt not offer up your input on Juneteenth or take its name in vain. I mean, I don't get the anger about this. Like, if white people ask about this, they're going to be upset. Okay. Thou shalt not cover the neighbor's anything. Don't ask them about June 19th. And again, these people are serious. Don't offer your input, but also don't ask anything. Don't admit you don't know anything, but don't ask anything either. Don't offer your own input, because if you do, that's also bad. So are we just supposed to stay in our house? I mean, if that's it, fine. My company gave a corporate holiday. If that's what we're supposed to do, that's cool with me. Remember Juneteenth and keep it holy. Don't disrespect it by wearing crazy clothing. I don't think you should ever do that. Wear other cultures' clothing as sort of a costume. That's a bad idea. Just in general, people are going to get very upset about this. Now, they've taken it to the extreme. Like you can't be certain superheroes if they're a different race and all that other stuff. That's just nutty stuff. And then this one is, again, back to the same thing. And a lot of this is solely, you should already know about this. Don't ask people to explain it to you. But if you don't know, don't ask people to explain it to you, because you should already know. And that's lean into thine own understanding. You don't have to teach anyone about the holiday. If they're black, they don't need it. If they're white, I'm sure they'll get it like their kinfolk did for the first 155 years. Just the animosity towards this is just so odd and misplaced. Yeah, we're back to not wanting to covet things from your neighbor, like their blackness. And I want to read this again, because who believes that this is a thing? Juneteenth is not the cookout. You don't get a one-day pass to use the N-word or wear blackface. Who thinks that they did? No one. Thou shalt not steal. That means labor, land, wealth, elections, opportunity, education, due process under the law, the right to not be murdered by police officers, voting rights. Try something new. What? Oh, okay. And thou shalt not purchase gifts for thou black neighbor. Ha ha ha. Just kidding. I know you don't have any. So, nice, miserable people here. But they are not, of course, the only ones being absolutely terrible. Entrepreneur also has a list, the do's and don'ts for engaging in Juneteenth conversations. I'm here to help, so don't get mad at me. I'm not the one who came up with these things. I'm merely a messenger, and I'm delivering that message as I am commanded to do so, because I'm not allowed to have any of my own ideas on this issue. I am only allowed to repeat what I'm being told by black people about Juneteenth. Do educate yourself on the holiday ahead of time. I know what Juneteenth is, so boom, I am good there. If you don't know, Juneteenth is after the Emancipation Proclamation was issued. Everyone was freed. The Civil War was over. And then there were some people in Galveston, Texas, who were still have not received the message. This is when they received the message. So there we go. Do allow black colleagues to speak on their Juneteenth perspectives, but don't put the burden on them to educate everyone. And again, we're back to this. This is a catch-22. It's a trap. Listen to what your black colleagues say about Juneteenth, but don't ask questions of them, and don't expect them to tell you things. So if you don't know, you should know. If you don't know, shut up, because no one's going to tell you. Okay. This one's funny. Do create a safer space for the conversation, and they go into this like, are there warm beverages available? Is it too hot or cold in the room for someone to have the conversation? And this is a serious thing they're saying. Like, don't make the room too hot and don't make the room too cold. Make the room perfect. What are you, stupid? It's Juneteenth. Everyone knows that the official temperature for Juneteenth is perfect. And that's not me saying it. Think about the seating arrangement. Is the room set up in a hierarchical way where all the chairs are pointed in one direction in the teacher to pupil dynamic that I referred to earlier, or are the chairs set up in a circle so all attendees can be seen and heard? So you want it to be in a circle where everyone can be seen and heard. However, don't say anything because this isn't your space. Everyone needs to be seen and heard. Shut the hell up. Do propose to make Juneteenth a company holiday. Well, some companies have already done that. So I think you're pretty good on that. If you want to propose that, Juneteenth is probably not the day to do so. You should probably do that probably tomorrow or you should have done it weeks ago and seen where your company is going on that. It's a federal holiday, so there's your argument right there. Don't make Juneteenth a one-day event, but celebrate it on June 19th. Apparently, according to the story, the 4th of July is celebrated over the 4-day weekends and things like that. Sometimes it is. I think this year it's on a Tuesday, so I think you will see people who stretch it from Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Maybe they'll even stretch it from Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Possible. That's the thing that they're going to do. But don't make it a one-day event. Make it a multi-day event. Also, shut up. Don't do anything. Don't say anything. Don't participate in anything. You should already know this. Don't wear performative clothing to show that you're down with the cause. That's probably a good piece of advice for you in general. So there you go. Those are your do's and don'ts. And the final thoughts, of course, tell you about what you're allowed to discuss on this day and what you're not. However, shut up and listen, learn something, but don't expect someone else to teach it to you.